Hi, I'm Pastor Dustin Abbott from Emmanuel-Lighthouse United Pentecostal Church, and I'm here today to bring you your devotion for this Friday. Now, yesterday I shared a devotion, talking about our need for social connection during this time, and so many of you have responded favorably, positively about that and how it helped you. And there was something what triggered today's devotion is a part of my research in the things that are kind of impacting people during social isolation and this period of physical isolation. Is I mentioned a few statistics yesterday regarding alcohol and drug use, people binge watching on Netflix and other streaming services. What I didn't mention as a part of that, but was also part of my research, is unfortunately another topic of even greater concern, and that is that another thing that has spiked during this time of isolation is that pornography use is up at least 20% and spiking even higher in some locales. And so obviously this is already an epidemic in our culture, and unfortunately in many cases even within the church sometimes. And so it's something that has been made worse by the current crises. So I want to talk to you about your mind today. And it's not just about pornography, but what I'm sharing is something that's a general principle. It's just with some of our men's small groups, we've done a lot of research on this topic, and so I wanted to share a little bit about how your brain works and why it can be so easy, particularly in a moment like this, for you to fall into some bad habits, bad patterns. Now, what happens in our brains, there's two primary parts of the brain that I want to highlight for a moment. And the first is the prefrontal cortex. It's near the top of your brain towards the front of your brain. And the prefrontal cortex is considered to be part of the higher orders of thinking in your mind. The reason why it's considered higher is that it has to be very conscious kinds of thought. It's really in the prefrontal cortex that your personality is shaped. All of us have certain instincts that are a part of our own personality type, impulses and, vulnerabilities maybe to each of our unique personalities. But as we grow as adults or we grow as Christians, we develop pathways in our prefrontal cortex that helps to govern. And so, where we might be tempted to blurt something out, and we would have blurted it out before, as when our prefrontal cortex has become more developed and more Christ-like, frankly, that we reconsider and we actually put thought into, okay, what is going to be the outcome if I were to say that in this moment? Or it makes us to be more conscious rather than operating on an instinctual level. Our prefrontal cortex, when it's developed properly, is what enables us to have impulse control, to think about what we do and we think about what we say and think about the long-term ramifications. And by growing and exercising our prefrontal cortex, we develop disciplines, be they physical disciplines or spiritual disciplines, that help to shape us into better, more complete people. And so in that sense, we shape our personality, and it's through that process that we can become the best version of ourselves. Another aspect of our brain, however, is towards the base of the brain, and it's nearer the stem, and it's called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system has a lot of important functionality. I'm not here to criticize it in that sense. The way I kind of illustrate this is that if someone threw a ball to me right now, trying to figure out the trajectory of the ball and the trajectory that my hand would need to be, by doing calculations and calculating the physics of the movement of the ball. There is so much going on there, Matt. I don't know about your math skills, but definitely I can say for myself, it's outside of the scope of what my higher reasoning is able to accomplish. But my limbic system has this instinctual response. And so if the ball is coming toward me, there's a good chance if it's coming fast, I don't even think about it. Just my hand goes up. And if you have any kind of hand-eye coordination, which fortunately I do, in probably 9 times out of 10, I'm going to catch that ball without even consciously thinking about it at all. It's just a purely instinctual thing. So that's a positive aspect of the limbic system. You don't have to think about, you don't have to think about getting hungry. For you, when you get hungry, it's not a mental calculation looking at the time. Well, it's about the time of day I should be getting hungry. You don't have to, do a calculation about how many calories you have consumed and how many calories your body is burning. So thus, I must need some fuel. No, your limbic system figures that out without you ever thinking about it. And it starts to send, signals throughout your body, and you start to have physiological responses. Your stomach starts to growl. You start to feel the hunger pains, as we call them. And so it's time to eat. You didn't have to put any thought into that. But at the same time, our limbic system also is very much about impulse. It's about the appetites of our physical body. And so those appetites are easy to indulge. And a lot of times the limbic system wants the easiest way to get what it wants at the time. And so that's true for many people. For example, when they are looking at pornography, they get actually brain scans show a pattern very similar to that of hardcore drug users, to where the neural pathways are formed, addictive pathways are formed, because the body gets very similar chemical releases to what it does, for example, with drug use. And so people, they have a response to it. And so their limbic system, it's never enough. It always craves more. And pornography use, just like any other addictive behavior, it follows same patterns, to where it demands more and more, demands more intense content. And I'm not going to go into that in detail today, but just understand that there's a system there at work. Also, your limbic system is responsible for forming neural pathways along the path of least resistance. And so, for example, your prefrontal cortex might tell you, I need to exercise. Your limbic system says, I like junk food and sitting on the couch. And if you don't engage the higher neural pathways, what ends up happening is the limbic system wins out every time, and you end up on the couch with a bag of chips rather than exercising. Or, let me give you maybe a more spiritual example. Your prefrontal cortex should tell you, God's word is going to feed me and going to help me today. Your limbic system says, there's other things that I enjoy more. And so fill in the blank, whatever that might be. And you all know that there's been days where you had the intention of reading your Bible. You had the intention of praying, but you ended up following the path of least resistance. And that was doing what your limbic system wanted, your flesh wanted. And that was things other than spiritual disciplines. Now the problem is that I've mentioned neural pathways a number of times, and why I say that is that every time that we think or we do things, we form neural pathways. It's the way that information is communicated throughout our brains. And so much like a path that is beaten down over a lot of traffic, the neural pathways will grow and become convenient, the convenient way, just the way that our brain operates, because it's done it so many times. It's the reason why, even as a Christian, you may have certain situations where all of a sudden you find yourself behaving like you did before you knew Christ. And it's just like, where did that come from? Well, it came from the fact that you were in a situation to where you reverted to the easy pathway in your mind. Maybe you haven't developed enough of a spiritual discipline in that area to where your brain doesn't go down that path anymore. It goes down that old path. And of course, that's a really intense challenge that all of us face on a daily basis, which is why Paul talked about having to die daily, that there was a part of him that had to be executed on a daily basis for the Spirit of God to reign. Romans 8:1 says that there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. See, that's the difference right there. We don't have condemnation in our lives when we make the right kind of choices towards God's Spirit, rather than following after the base instinct of our flesh. And so the way to keep condemnation from our life is to follow the right kind of pathways, to follow after the lead of the Spirit. But the thing is that your brain actually works against you. That's the problem with addictive behavior. That if someone, for example, I'll use again the illustration of pornography, the longer that somebody looks at pornography, the harder it gets to stop that behavior. Just like a drug user or a smoker who wants to change that pattern of behavior. But the problem is that you actually begin to affect the very formation of your brain through your decisions. And so for example, those that have done an addictive behavior, be it pornography or drug, alcohol, cigarette use, whatever, is that the more that you engage the easy pathway in your mind, the less developed your prefrontal cortex is. And if you do brain scans of a healthy individual compared to that of an addict, you can see that there's tremendous atrophy. There's areas in the brain that look worn down, depleted, because they have not been properly developed. And so, of course, the younger that this happens, and unfortunately we see a lot of that with children, it makes the decisions they make as a young person. Our society will, talk about young people, they just need to sow their wild oats, and it's not a big deal. That's really a lie, because what happens is that you develop or underdevelop parts of your brain that make it harder to make good choices, to operate on a higher cognitive level later on in life. And so the more that you do something, the harder it becomes to stop doing. Any of you that have tried to deal with a habit, I used to bite my nails as a child, a young person. And I can tell you, it was a battle to stop biting my nails, because there were just certain situations where you would operate on the limbic system level. Without even thinking about it, you'd be there biting on your nail. It was a subconscious thing. And so it took a lot of very conscious thought to say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to do that. But here is the positive thing. And you thought I was just using this Bible for a prop. I actually have a scripture to read for you. It is Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. It says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Paul talked about that struggle that people often face, to where he talked about the things that he wanted to do, he wasn't doing, and the things that he didn't want to do, those were the things he ended up doing. And so the struggle that all of us face, all of you, every one of us face it. But the way to have victory in that is to have a renewing of our mind. And so obviously that comes through prayer, but it's not just prayer and then God flips a switch in our mind. It's very rarely that case. Very often God challenges us to be a part of that renewing process, which means that there is a daily series of choices that I have to make. When I'm tempted to go to maybe down the path of an addictive behavior or a destructive behavior, again and again, I have to do it with God's help, saying, God, help me. And that's why it's an important thing to start off your day with prayer and praying for God's help. And what I already quoted to you from Romans chapter 8, that's been a regular part of my own prayer life, because I pray, God, help me to walk after your Spirit today. Help me to make the right choices. But in that moment, when I'm faced with that choice, I have to operate at the prefrontal cortex level and not at the limbic system level. I've got to make a conscious, intentional choice. But the good news is this: the Bible talks about a renewing of your mind, a renovation of your mind. The amazing thing is that the brain has a tremendous capacity to continue to form new neural pathways. And the more that we do a right thing, the stronger that those pathways become. It becomes a path that we start walking down once, down twice, and then as we've done it dozens and hundreds of times, that pathway begins to become the well-walked path in our life. Meanwhile, the old easy path that we used to walk, it starts to get grown over with weeds. It starts to become less used, and there can come a point in your life where you're no longer tempted to walk down that way at all. I'm not tempted to bite my nails anymore. There came a point in my life to where there was a new neural pathway formed that took away that interest in that, to where I have no interest in the destructive look of my fingernails, and I have no interest in doing that. But it took a lot of battles along the way. But my brain rewired itself. It was renewed. It was transformed. Now, I said all this to say this. Perhaps in the midst of this isolation period, you don't have as many things to occupy you. If you're not going to work right now, you're not going to school, you're not in your normal routine, to where a certain amount of your personal autonomy is taken from you because your boss tells you what to do, your teacher tells you what to do. There's more people in your life that hold your feet to the fire and require certain things of you. Right now, you may have a certain more mental leisure, and that can be a really dangerous thing when it comes to indulging some of the bad habits, bad behaviors in our life. And so I want to encourage you today to pray a prayer this and every day. God, help me to follow after the lead of your Spirit. God, help me to use this mind that you've given me and engage my higher reasoning, my higher thought, and not fall down to that base instinctual level. God, help me not to walk down the easy path today, but help me to find the straight and the narrow path. It takes a lot of conscious decisions instead of the unconscious, easy decisions. But I assure you this, your mind can be changed. It can be renewed. It can be transformed to become more like Christ Jesus. I want to encourage you to pursue that. Don't allow this period of physical isolation to be a time when you slip in your spiritual disciplines, in your physical and personal disciplines. Use this as a time to build a better you with the help of God. God bless you. I'm Pastor Dustin Abbott. I want to invite you to join us 10:30 a.m. on Sunday. And we're going to be having another live stream service right here, or you can find us on YouTube as well by searching Emmanuel Lighthouse. Or if you're on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook by searching Emmanuel Lighthouse there. But I hope that you'll join us. We're going to share things from God's Word. We're going to worship together. We're going to grow together as Christians. And we're going to do the work of God even in the midst of this physical isolation. God bless you. Have a wonderful day today.